They looked at her hoodie and saw a servant. She looked at their financial reports and saw a crime scene. When Nia Sterling, the billionaire owner of Sterling Global, walked into the private terminal at Teterboro Airport, the executives of the failing airline she was secretly acquiring didn't offer a handshake. They offered her a trash bag to take out. They told her to wait outside like a naughty child, unaware that in exactly 60 seconds, the woman standing in the rain wouldn't just be entering the room, she'd be emptying it. This isn't just a story about business. It's a masterclass in why you never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book owns the library. The rain at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey was relentless, a grey sheet of water that turned the tarmac into a slick, dark mirror, reflecting the lights of the private hangars. It was the kind of weather that made people hurry, heads ducked low, ignoring everything around them to get to safety. Nia Sterling loved it. At 34, Nia was one of the youngest heavy hitters in logistics. She had built Sterling Global from a single warehouse in Atlanta into a multinational freight empire. She was used to boardrooms, galas, and the suffocating pressure of public scrutiny. But today, standing under the awning of the VIP FBO terminal, she felt blissfully invisible. She was dressed in a charcoal grey cashmere travel set, expensive if you knew the fabric, but to the untrained eye, it looked like oversized sweats. Her hair was pulled back in a loose, messy bun, and she wore zero makeup. She had just flown in from a grueling 3-week site inspection in Kenya and was exhausted. She checked her watch. 8:45 a.m. She was here to meet the executive board of Ascend Airways, a boutique charter company her firm was in the final stages of acquiring. The paperwork was 99% done. Today was merely a formality, a meet and greet before the final signatures were inked in London later that week. She had arranged to fly with them on their company jet to London to finalize the deal. Nia pulled her phone out, texting her chief legal officer, Carter Banks. "I'm at the FBO. Don't see the team yet. I'm going to grab a coffee in the lounge." Carter replied instantly. "They should be there. Look for 3 suits who look like they own the place. I'll meet you in London. Good luck, boss." Nia slipped her phone into her pocket and pushed through the glass doors of the private terminal. The lounge was quiet, smelling of expensive leather and brewing espresso. In the center of the room, occupying the largest cluster of armchairs, were 3 people who fit Carter's description perfectly. There was Bradford Brad Halloway, the CEO of Ascend Airways. He was a man in his 50s who wore his arrogance like cologne, too strong and impossible to ignore. He was laughing loudly, slapping his knee. Next to him was Jessica Prentice, the VP of Human Resources. She was tapping furiously on a tablet, her blonde bob cut so sharp it looked like it could cut glass. And finally, Greg Thorne, the CFO. He looked nervous, sweating slightly despite the air conditioning, clutching a briefcase to his chest. Nia took a breath. She hadn't met them in person yet. All negotiations had been done through intermediaries and video calls, where she usually kept her camera off or had Carter speak for her. She preferred to remain an enigma until the ink was dry. She walked toward them, offering a polite, tired smile. She intended to introduce herself, skip the pleasantries, and get on the plane so she could sleep. "Excuse me," Nia said, her voice soft but clear as she approached the circle of leather chairs. "Mr. Halloway?" Bradford Halloway didn't even look up. He was busy scrolling through his phone. "Not now, sweetheart. We're in a meeting." Nia paused. She blinked, confused. "I understand. I just wanted to—" "Jesus," Jessica sighed, finally looking up. Her eyes scanned Nia from her messy bun to her sneakers. The look was one of pure, unfiltered disdain. "The service in this terminal has really gone downhill. Look, we didn't order any refreshments yet, but since you are here, take this. Jessica picked up an empty Starbucks cup from the table, a sticky, half-drunken caramel latte, and thrust it toward Naya. And empty the ashtray while you're at it, Brad added, still not looking at her. It smells like burnt mismanagement in here. He chuckled at his own joke. Naya stood frozen. The cup was hovering inches from her chest. They think I'm the cleaning staff. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Being a black woman in high-level corporate spaces meant navigating a minefield of assumptions. Usually, she would correct them immediately, flashing a business card or a sharp retort. But today, Naya felt a cold, sharp curiosity settle in her gut. If this was how they treated the staff, how did they treat their company? And more importantly, what would they say if they thought no one important was listening? Naya slowly reached out and took the cup. Her face remained impassive, a mask of calm. "Of course," Naya said, her voice dropping an octave, playing the part. "Is there anything else I can get you, sir?" Brad finally glanced at her. He looked right through her, seeing only a function, not a person. "Yeah, we're waiting on the new owner. Some stiff named Sterling. Probably a nepotism hire or some diversity quota fill from the parent company. If he shows up, or she, or whatever, just point them to us. Until then, make yourself scarce." "Actually," Jessica interjected, snapping her fingers. "Wait, my bags are by the door. The Louis Vuitton set. Bring them closer. I don't want them getting damp near the entrance." "Right away," Naya said. She walked over to the door, grabbed the heavy designer bags, and hauled them over to the group. As she set them down, she lingered, pretending to adjust a strap. "So, Greg," the nervous CFO whispered, leaning in toward Brad. "Are we sure about this, Brad? If Sterling's auditors see the Flight 404 logs—" "Relax, Greg," Brad scoffed, leaning back and putting his feet up on the coffee table, inches from Naya's hand. "Sterling Global is a logistics company. They move boxes, not people. They don't know the first thing about aviation maintenance schedules. By the time they figure out we haven't overhauled the engines in 3 years, the merger will be signed, and our golden parachutes will be cashed. We'll be sipping Mai Tais in Bali while they deal with the FAA." Nia's heart stopped. They haven't overhauled the engines in 3 years? That wasn't just negligence, that was criminal. Ascend Airways carried thousands of passengers. "I don't know," Greg stammered. "This Nia Sterling woman. I read a Forbes article on her. They say she's a shark." "Please," Jessica laughed, applying lipstick while using her selfie camera. "She's a figurehead, probably inherited the seed money. I looked her up. No photos, very private. That screams hiding incompetence. We just need to dazzle her with the projections, get her to sign the morality clause waiver, and we're free." Nia straightened up. She had heard enough to fire them 10 times over. But she needed more. She needed them to incriminate themselves on the specific fraud regarding the Flight 404 logs Greg had mentioned. "Excuse me, ma'am," Naya said, interrupting their conspiracy. Jessica rolled her eyes. "What is it now? Do you want a tip? Is that it?" She dug into her purse and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, tossing it on the floor near Naya's feet. "Take it and go wait outside. We have sensitive business to discuss." "Wait outside?" Naya repeated, looking at the money on the carpet. "Yes." "Outside," Brad barked. "The plane is prepping. We don't need you hovering. Go stand by the gate and open it when the pilot signals. And for God's sake, fix your hair. You look like you slept in a dryer." Nia looked at the $5 bill. Then she looked at Brad. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized the prey was stuck in the trap. "I'll wait outside," Naya said, "but you might want to hold on to that $5. You're going to need every penny soon." "Excuse me?" Jessica snapped. "Nothing," Naya said, turning around. "Just checking the weather." She walked out into the rain, the glass doors sliding shut behind her. The cold wind hit her face, but she didn't feel it. She pulled out her phone and dialed Carter. "Change of plans," she said, her voice shaking with controlled rage. "Get me the FAA liaison on the line and send me the full unredacted employee roster for Ascend Airways. I need to know exactly who is on that plane." "Naya." "What's going on?" Carter asked. "I'm about to conduct a performance review," Nia said, staring through the glass at the three executives laughing inside. "And it's going to be a bloodbath." Nia stood under the overhang of the building, the rain drumming a rhythmic beat against the metal roof. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the VIP lounge, she had a front-row seat to the Ascend Airways leadership team. They looked like royalty holding court. Brad was pouring himself a drink from the complimentary bar at 9:02 a.m. Jessica was berating a young waiter who had just come on shift, pointing aggressively at her coffee cup. Nia's phone buzzed. It was the dossier Carter had sent. She scrolled through the files. Bradford Halloway, CEO, compensation package, $4.5 million annually, known for aggressive cost-cutting. Jessica Prentice, VP of HR, numerous complaints filed against her for workplace bullying, all settled out of court or buried. Greg Thorne, CFO, a quiet accountant with a gambling debt problem, according to a background check Carter had run weeks ago. That explained the sweating. Nia tapped her earpiece. "Carter, are you recording this line?" "Always," Carter replied. "I've patched in our internal security team and the legal department. They're listening." "Good, because I'm going back in, but not as Nia Sterling. Not yet. I need Greg to confirm the details of the Flight 404 log." "Nia, be careful," Carter warned. "If they realize who you are before we have the evidence of fraud secure, they could shred the digital logs remotely." "They won't," Nia said, watching Brad laugh at something on the TV screen. "They're too busy celebrating their victory." Nia pulled her hood up further. She needed a reason to go back in. She spotted a janitorial cart left unattended near the side entrance. On it was a stack of fresh towels. Perfect. She grabbed a stack of towels and walked back through the sliding doors. "Fresh towels for the rain," Nia muttered, keeping her head down as she approached their circle again. "Finally," Jessica snapped. "I spilled coffee on my blouse. Give me that." She snatched a towel from Nia's hand without a thank you. Nia moved to the other side of the table, near Greg. She pretended to wipe a non-existent smudge off the glass table. "So, Brad," Greg said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper, "the phantom parts, the ones we billed for but never installed. How do we hide that from the transition team? Sterling's due diligence guys are thorough." Nia's hand paused on the table. Phantom parts. Billing for repairs that never happened. This wasn't just fraud. This was endangering lives. Brad took a swig of his drink. "Greg, you spineless idiot. We labeled them as inventory in transit. By the time they audit the warehouses in Ohio, we'll be gone. It's a shell game. We move the debt to the subsidiary, sell the subsidiary to Sterling, and the debt vanishes into their massive balance sheet. They absorb the loss. We keep the bonus for reducing overhead." "It's genius, really," Jessica chimed in, dabbing her blouse. "Sterling is so desperate to expand into aviation, they're blind. They see the brand name, not the rot underneath. It's like selling a house with termites but a fresh coat of paint." "And if the plane crashes?" Greg asked, his voice trembling. The room went silent. Nia held her breath. This was it. The moment of truth. Brad leaned forward, his face twisting into a sneer. then it's a tragedy. And we issue a press release sending our thoughts and prayers. We're executives, Greg, not mechanics. If the bird falls, it falls. That's what insurance is for. Nia felt a wave of nausea. She gripped the towel in her hand so tight her knuckles turned white. These people weren't just greedy, they were sociopaths. "Hey!" Brad shouted, noticing Nia standing there frozen. "Cleaner! Are you deaf? I said get out! Why are you still hovering?" Nia looked up, her eyes locked with Brad's. For a split second, Brad faltered. There was something in her eyes, an intensity, a fire that didn't belong to a terrified cleaning lady. "I'm just waiting," Nia said, her voice steady. "Waiting for what?" Brad demanded, standing up. He towered over her, using his height to intimidate. "Waiting for a Christmas bonus? Get out before I have security throw you out." "I'm waiting for the pilot," Nia lied smoothly. "He asked me to let him know when the VIPs are ready to board." "We're ready now," Jessica said, standing up and grabbing her purse. "Tell the captain to spool up the engines, and tell him not to wait for the Sterling representative. If they're late, they miss the flight. We have a schedule to keep." "You want to leave without the buyer?" Nia asked. "The buyer is a checkbook, not a person," Brad spat. "We'll send a car for them later. Let's go." They began to gather their things. Brad brushed past Nia, deliberately bumping her shoulder. "Useless," he muttered. Nia watched them head toward the tarmac door. "Carter," she whispered into her mic. "Did you get that?" "Every word," Carter's voice came back, grim and sharp. "That's conspiracy to commit fraud, gross negligence, and about 10 other felonies. I can have the police there in 20 minutes. "No," Nia said. "Not yet. Police take too long, and lawyers settle. I want to handle this personally." "What are you going to do?" "They want to go to London." "Fine. Let's go to London." Nia walked toward the tarmac door, following the executives. "But I think there's going to be a slight change in the seating chart." "Nia, you're not getting on that plane with them alone," Carter protested. "I'm not alone," Nia said, stepping out into the rain again, watching the sleek Gulfstream G650 jet waiting on the tarmac. "I have the truth, and in about 10 minutes I'm going to have their badges." She saw the pilot, Captain Milan, standing by the stairs of the jet. He looked confused as Brad and Jessica marched up the stairs, ignoring him. Nia picked up her pace. She wasn't walking like a servant anymore. She was walking like a CEO, but the rain and the hood still obscured her face. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, Jessica turned around at the top, blocking the entrance. "Where do you think you're going?" Jessica screeched, looking down at Nia. "This is a private charter. Staff flies commercial or in the cargo hold." Nia looked up, the rain dripping off her hood. "The pilot needs a manifest count. I'm just verifying the passenger list." "We are the passenger list," Brad yelled from inside the cabin. "Get rid of her, Jessica." "You heard him," Jessica sneered. "Wait outside, or better yet, go home. You're fired." Nia smiled, a genuine, terrifying smile. "Fired?" she repeated. "That's a very interesting word, Jessica. Keep it in mind. You're going to hear it again very soon." The interior of the Gulfstream G650 was a sanctuary of cream-colored leather, polished walnut wood, and the soft hum of the auxiliary power unit, APU, keeping the cabin warm. It was a world away from the cold, grey rain of the Teterboro tarmac. Bradford Halloway was already settled in the master seat, the one facing forward on the right, traditionally reserved for the owner. He had kicked off his wet loafers and was wiggling his toes into the thick, plush carpet. Jessica Prentice was across the aisle, aggressively pouring champagne into a crystal flute, the foam spilling over onto the wood veneer. "To the sale of the century," Jessica toasted, raising her glass, "and to the idiots buying it." "To the idiots," Brad laughed, clinking his glass against hers. Greg, the nervous CFO, was in the back, popping a Xanax and washing it down with sparkling water. He was still shaking. The cabin door was still open, the stairs deployed, waiting for the ground crew to pull them up. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the doorway. It was the cleaning lady. The one in the hoodie. Brad lowered his glass, his face twisting into a mask of pure annoyance. "What is wrong with you? I told you to get lost. Are you mentally deficient?" Nia Sterling didn't flinch. She stepped into the cabin. She didn't stay by the door. She walked right into the center of the aisle, her wet sneakers leaving dark imprints on the pristine carpet. "Get out!" Jessica shrieked, standing up. "Captain! Captain Milan! Get this vagrant off the plane!" Captain Milan, a tall man with graying temples and a stern face, stepped out of the cockpit. He looked at the executives, then he looked at Nia. "Is there a problem, sir?" Milan asked, looking at Brad. "Yes, there's a problem," Brad roared. "This nobody is trespassing. Throw her down the stairs." Nia raised a hand, silencing the room. She reached up and slowly pulled down her hood. Her hair was messy, yes, but her face was striking. Sharp, intelligent, and currently icy cold. She unzipped the damp grey hoodie to reveal the blouse underneath. A simple black silk shirt, but pinned to the lapel was a small, distinctive pin, a silver globe wrapped in a golden laurel. The logo of Sterling Global. "Captain Milan," Nia said, her voice calm and authoritative, completely different from the subservient tone she had used in the terminal. "Close the door, and lock it." "Excuse me?" Brad stood up, his face reddening. "You don't give orders here. I am the CEO of this airline." Captain Milan looked at Nia, then at the pin, then back at his flight manifest, which had just been updated digitally on his iPad. He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am," Milan said. He pressed the button. The hydraulic whine of the stairs retracting filled the cabin. The heavy door thudded shut, and the locking bolts clicked into place. The sound echoed like a prison cell closing. "What are you doing, Milan?" Jessica screamed. "I'll have your license. Open that door." "Sit down, Jessica," Nia said. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. The command cracked like a whip. Nia walked over to the seat directly facing Brad, the one meant for the negotiator. She sat down, crossing her legs, and leaned back, looking every inch the billionaire she was, despite the sweatpants. "You?" Greg stammered from the back, his eyes wide. "I know you. I saw your picture in the Wall Street Journal. You're her." "Who?" Brad demanded, looking between Greg and Nia. "Nia Sterling," Greg whispered, the color draining from his face. "She's the buyer." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The only sound was the rain drumming against the fuselage. Brad's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He looked at the cleaning lady he had ordered to empty the ashtray. He looked at the woman he had told to wait outside. "No," Brad scoffed, a desperate, nervous laugh bubbling up. "No way. Sterling is a well, I assumed." "You assumed Sterling was a man?" Nia finished for him, raising an eyebrow. "Or did you just assume that a black woman in a hoodie couldn't possibly sign your paychecks?" Jessica slowly sat down, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. "But you were carrying my bags." "I was assessing the weight of my baggage," Nia corrected. "And it seems this company has a lot more baggage than just Louis Vuitton." Nia reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She placed it on the table between them, screen up. It was recording. "Now," Nia said, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register. "We have a flight time of approximately 0 minutes because this plane isn't going to London. But we do have an agenda. Item number 1, the engine maintenance logs for Flight 404. Brad went pale. "You heard that?" "I heard everything, Brad. The phantom parts, The shell game with the inventory. The thoughts and prayers press release you were planning to write when this plane inevitably crashed and killed everyone on board. Nia leaned forward. So, before I call the authorities, I'm going to give you 1 minute. 60 seconds. Convince me why I shouldn't destroy you right here and now. The air in the cabin was so thick with tension it felt flammable. Bradford Halloway, a man who had bullied unions, intimidated suppliers and charmed investors for 30 years, was sweating through his Italian suit. He looked at the door. Locked. He looked at the captain, who was now standing with his arms crossed, blocking the cockpit, clearly aligning himself with the new owner. Brad decided to do what he did best. Attack. Look, Nia, can I call you Nia? Brad started, putting on his grease salesman smile. You're taking this out of context. That conversation in the lounge, locker room talk, venting, stress relief. Running an airline is hard work. Fraud is hard work, Nia corrected. Running an airline requires integrity. Integrity doesn't pay the fuel bill, Brad snapped, his facade cracking. You think you can just waltz in here and judge us? You don't know this industry. We did what we had to do to keep the stock price up, to make the company attractive for you. We did this for you. For me? Nia laughed, a dry, humorless sound. You defrauded me. You cooked the books to inflate the valuation so you could cash out and leave me with a fleet of flying coffins. It's business, Jessica shouted, finding her voice. She stood up, pointing a manicured finger at Nia. Oh, stop being so dramatic. So we missed a few inspections. These planes are tanks. They fly fine. You're just looking for a reason to lower the purchase price. Fine. We'll knock off 5%. $5 million. Just for you. Call it a misunderstanding fee. Nia looked at Jessica with genuine pity. You think this is about money? You tried to tip me $5 to stand in the rain, Jessica. You think you can buy me off with $5 million? Nia tapped her phone. Carter, bring them in. Bring who in? Greg asked, his voice squeaking. Outside the window, multiple black SUVs with flashing blue lights screeched onto the tarmac, surrounding the jet. The police? Brad gasped, rushing to the window. You called the cops? You can't do that. This is a civil matter. It's a contract dispute. Actually, Nia said, standing up, fraud involving aviation safety is a federal crime, but those aren't the police. Not yet. The doors of the SUVs opened. Men and women in dark windbreakers stepped out, but they weren't FBI. They wore vests that said FAA and Audit. That is the Federal Aviation Administration's Special Investigation Unit, Nia explained. And the team behind them? That's my forensic accounting team. They aren't here to arrest you. They are here to seize the plane. Seize the plane? Brad yelled. This is company property. And I own the holding company as of 8 a.m. this morning, Nia revealed. The deal triggered automatically when the markets opened in London. I didn't need your signature today, Brad. I just needed to see your face when you realized you were caught. Nia walked over to the minibar, poured herself a glass of water, and took a sip. You see, the twist isn't that I'm the owner, Nia said softly. The twist is that I've been the owner for 3 hours. And as the owner, I have the right to terminate employees for gross misconduct, effective immediately. She turned to them. Bradford Halloway, you are fired. For cause. No severance. No golden parachute. Jessica Prentice, you are fired. For harassment and negligence. Greg Thorne, you are fired. For accounting fraud. You can't do that, Brad screamed, lunging toward her. My contract guarantees a $10 million exit package. Read the fine print, Brad, Nia said, not even flinching as he stepped closer. The morality clause you mentioned earlier? It voids all payouts if the executive commits a felony, And admitting to falsifying maintenance logs on a recorded line? That's a felony. Brad stopped inches from her face. He raised a hand, his face purple with rage. You little... Captain Milan stepped forward, grabbing Brad's wrist in a vice grip. Mr. Holloway, the pilot said, his voice like gravel. I wouldn't do that. Technically, we are still under maritime law rules while the doors are sealed, and I am the captain. If you touch her, I will zip-tie you to the seat. Brad yanked his arm away, panting. He looked around the cabin. His kingdom was crumbling. You'll regret this, Brad hissed. I know people. I'll ruin your reputation. I'll tell the press you're a tyrant. Go ahead, Nia challenged. Tell them. But remember, I have the recording, and in about 5 minutes, I'm going to upload it to the company server for the entire board of directors to hear. Suddenly, Greg, the quiet CFO in the back, started to sob. I told you, Brad, Greg wept, head in his hands. I told you she was a shark. I can't go to prison. I have kids. Shut up, Greg, Jessica snapped. She turned to Nia, her eyes changing tactic. She softened her expression, trying to look like a victim. Nia, look, sister to sister. Brad made me do it. It was a toxic work environment. I was just following orders. Surely you can understand that. I'm a woman in a male-dominated field, just like you. Nia stared at her. The silence stretched for 10 seconds. Jessica, Nia said slowly. 10 minutes ago, you looked at me and saw a servant. You threw trash at me. You told me to wait outside in the rain. You didn't see a sister. You saw someone beneath you. Do not try to play the ally card now that you're the one standing in the cold. Nia pressed the intercom button. Captain, open the door. Let the trash out. The stairs lowered with a mechanical whir. The rain was coming down harder now, a torrential downpour that blurred the world into grey static. But this time, Nia wasn't the one stepping out into it. Get off my plane, Nia said. We need our bags, Jessica cried, looking at her Louis Vuitton luggage stacked by the entrance. Those bags contain company laptops and documents, Nia said. They are now evidence. You can leave with what you have in your pockets. This is theft, Brad roared. This is asset protection, Nia countered. Go. Now. Brad stared at her with pure hatred. He adjusted his jacket, tried to regain a shred of dignity, and turned to the door. He marched down the stairs, head held high, expecting a car to be waiting for him. But there was no limo, no town car. Instead, the tarmac was filled with the FAA agents and the forensic accountants Nia had summoned, and behind them, standing near the terminal fence, were the ground crew, the baggage handlers, the fuelers, the janitors, the people Brad and Jessica had ignored and mistreated for years. They were watching. As Brad stepped onto the wet asphalt, the rain soaked him instantly. His expensive Italian suit turned dark and heavy, his hair plastered to his skull. Jessica followed, shivering in her thin blouse, her heels clicking on the metal stairs. She looked around for an umbrella. There were none. The ground crew just watched, arms crossed. Nia stood at the top of the stairs, dry and warm under the fuselage overhang. She looked down at them, the view they had forced on her just 30 minutes ago. Hey! Brad shouted at an FAA agent. Get me a car. I need to get to the city. The agent, a stern woman named Agent Kovich, stepped forward. Mr. Holloway, we have a warrant to seize your personal electronics. Phone, please. What? Brad stumbled back. You can't. Phone, now. Agent Kovich held out her hand. Defeated, Brad handed over his phone. Jessica and Greg did the same. You are free to go, Agent Kovich said, but do not leave the state. We will be in touch regarding the indictment. How are we supposed to leave? Jessica wailed, looking at the desolate airfield. We don't have our phones to call an Uber. We don't have our wallets." Their wallets were in the bags Nia had seized. Nia called out from the top of the stairs. Her voice carried over the rain. "There's a bus stop about 2 miles down the road," Nia shouted. "It's a bit of a walk, but look on the bright side. The exercise is good for your heart." "You bitch!" Jessica screamed, her mascara running down her face in black streaks. "And hey," Nia added, reaching into her pocket. She pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, the same one Jessica had thrown at her. Nia crumpled it into a ball and tossed it down to the tarmac. It landed right at Jessica's feet, soaking in a puddle. "Take it," Nia said coldly. "For the bus fare. Consider it a severance package." The ground crew near the fence started to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then grew into applause. The fueler who Brad had yelled at earlier let out a loud whistle. Brad, Jessica, and Greg stood there, drenched, humiliated, and stripped of everything: their power, their money, their dignity. Nia turned to Captain Milan. "Captain, invite the ground crew inside. I think there's a lot of leftover champagne and sandwiches that are going to go to waste. Let's have a staff meeting. A real one." "Yes, ma'am." Milan smiled, a genuine grin that reached his eyes. As Nia turned back into the warm, bright cabin, she didn't look back at the 3 figures trudging through the rain, dragging their feet toward the exit gate. The wait outside command had finally come full circle. But for them, the waiting was just beginning. The wait for lawyers, for court dates, and for a reality they were wholly unprepared to face. The atmosphere inside the Gulfstream GE50 shifted instantly the moment the door clicked shut, sealing out the rain and the toxic energy of the former executives. Nia turned to the group of people standing awkwardly by the entrance. There were 5 of them: 2 baggage handlers in soaked neon vests, a young woman from the catering truck, an older mechanic with grease-stained hands, and Captain Milan. They looked terrified, unsure if they were about to be fired next. "Please," Nia said, her voice warm and inviting, shedding the icy armor she had worn for Brad and Jessica. "Sit down. Anywhere you like. I promise the leather won't bite." The young woman from catering hesitated. "Ma'am, we're dirty. Our clothes—" "This plane can be cleaned," Nia interrupted gently. "Dignity is harder to restore. Please, sit." Tentatively they sat. The mechanic, whose name tag read Mike, sat on the edge of the seat previously occupied by Brad. He looked around the cabin with a mixture of awe and disgust. "Captain Milan," Nia said, taking a seat on the divan. "Pass the champagne. I think everyone here deserves a drink, and not the cheap stuff they keep in the back." As Milan poured glasses for the stunned crew, Nia leaned forward. "My name is Nia Sterling. I bought this airline this morning because I saw potential in the routes and the fleet. But a company isn't machines and landing slots. It's people. And from what I just witnessed outside, the leadership here has been failing you." Mike, the mechanic, took a sip of the champagne. He grimaced, not used to the taste, then set the glass down hard. "Failing us?" Mike let out a bitter chuckle. "That's a polite way to put it, Ms. Sterling. Holloway ran this place like a plantation, cut benefits, froze wages, and forced us to sign off on repairs with parts we didn't have." Nia's eyes narrowed. "Tell me about the repairs, Mike. The truth." Mike looked at Captain Milan. Milan nodded. "Ms. Sterling," Mike said, reaching into the deep pocket of his coveralls. He pulled out a small, battered black notebook. "Holloway and Thorne kept the official digital logs cooked. They thought they were smart. But I've been a mechanic for 40 years. I keep my own logs. A dead man's diary, we call it. Just in case." He slid the notebook across the polished walnut table. Nia picked it up. The pages were covered in handwritten notes, dates, and part numbers. "Turn to the last page," Mike said softly. The entry for this plane, tail number N650AA, the one we're sitting in. Nia flipped to the page. Her eyes scanned the scribbled text. Date: yesterday. Issue: microfractures detected in the portside landing gear strut. Status: critical. Recommendation: ground immediately for replacement. Management: response: ignore. Paint over it. Plane flies to London or you're fired. Nia felt a chill go down her spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Paint over it, she whispered. If we had landed in London with a full fuel load, Mike explained, his voice trembling slightly, that strut would have snapped on impact. The wing would have dipped, the fuel tank would have ruptured, and the friction would have sparked a fire. We would have cartwheeled down the runway. Nia looked at the empty seats where Brad, Jessica, and Greg had been sitting. They had been drinking champagne, laughing, planning their vacations, all while sitting on a bomb they had armed themselves. They were willing to die, and take everyone else with them, just to keep the illusion of profit alive for one more day. You saved their lives, Nia said, looking at Mike. You signed off on it? I signed the digital log because Holloway threatened to blacklist me, Mike admitted, looking down. But I disabled the hydraulic pump for the stairs. That's why it took so long to get the door open earlier. I was stalling. I was hoping the pilot would notice the error code before taxiing. I noticed, Captain Milan chimed in. I was about to fake a sensor failure to abort the takeoff when you walked in. We were never going to let this bird fly, Miss Sterling. But we didn't know how to stop them without losing our pensions. Nia closed the notebook. She placed her hand on top of it. Mike, she said firmly, you're not a mechanic anymore. Mike's head snapped up. Ma'am? You're the new VP of Fleet Maintenance, Nia declared. I want you to hire a team. Audit every single bolt on every single plane. If it's not safe, it doesn't fly. I don't care if we ground the whole fleet for a month. Sterling Global doesn't trade in lives. Mike's mouth fell open. VP? But I don't have a degree. You have this notebook. Nia tapped the black book. That's worth more than an MBA to me. Carter will draw up the contract. Your salary triples, effective today. She turned to the rest of the group. The rest of you? I need eyes and ears. I'm wiping out the middle management. If you know good people who were fired or quit because of Brad and Jessica, call them. Bring them back. We're rebuilding Ascend Airways. And this time, the people who actually do the work are going to be the ones respected. The young woman from catering wiped a tear from her cheek. Thank you, Miss Sterling. We thought you were just another suit. I am a suit, Nia smiled, finally taking a sip of her own water. But I decided a long time ago that the suit doesn't make the person. The actions do. She stood up. Now get out of here. Go home to your families. Get paid for the full day. Tomorrow, we work. Today, we celebrate the fact that we're still alive. As the crew filed out, looking lighter, happier, and filled with a hope they hadn't felt in years, Nia stayed behind with Captain Milan. Captain, she said. One last thing. Yes, boss? Do you know where they tow the garbage? The dumpsters behind Hangar 4, Milan replied. Good, Nia said, looking out the window at the rain. Make sure someone sends a memo to Hangar 4. I have a feeling 3 pieces of high-maintenance trash might be loitering there, looking for a ride. 6 months later, the collapse of the Ascend Airways executive team didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened on 4K screens, smartphones, and tablets across the globe. It began with a single upload. A ramp worker, who had been fixing a luggage belt near the VIP terminal that rainy morning, had pulled out his phone the moment he saw Jessica Prentice throw a Starbucks cup at a woman in a hoodie. He had kept recording through the insults, the wait outside command, and the eventual, humiliating walk of shame down the jet stairs. He uploaded the video to Reddit with the title, "Airline CEO and Karen VP Bully, Undercover Billionaire Owner. Watch the end." By the time Bradford Halloway woke up the next morning, hungover and suspended pending investigation, the video had 4.5 million views. By the end of the week, it was the most watched clip on YouTube. The internet is a cruel judge, and the verdict was unanimous: total destruction. Jessica Prentice had always defined herself by access: VIP lines, exclusive clubs, the right tables at the right restaurants. But 6 months later, she found that every door in New York City was bolted shut. The fashion industry, which she worshipped, treated her like a radioactive isotope. When she tried to attend a charity gala she had co-chaired the previous year, security stopped her at the red velvet rope. "Ms. Prentice," the guard said loudly enough for the paparazzi to hear, "you are no longer on the list. In fact, you are on the Do Not Admit list for all venue properties." But the real blow came from her bank account. Without her severance package, voided by the morality clause, and with legal fees mounting from the civil suits filed by the employees she had bullied, Jessica was bled dry. The eviction notice came in November. She ended up in a place that would have made the old Jessica retch, the Starlight Motor Inn, a decaying roadside motel off the New Jersey Turnpike. She wasn't a guest. She was the night shift receptionist. It was 2:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. The lobby smelled of stale cigarette smoke and lemon disinfectant. Jessica sat behind the scratched plexiglass, wearing a polyester uniform that was 2 sizes too big and itched her skin. Her pristine blonde bob was gone, grown out into brittle dark roots because she couldn't afford the $300 salon visits anymore. The bell on the counter dinged aggressively. A trucker stood there, chewing a toothpick. He looked tired and irritable. "Hey," the man grunted. "Room 104, the toilet's clogged. Go fix it." Jessica looked up, her eyes sunken. "Sir, I'm the receptionist. Maintenance comes at 8 a.m. "I don't care who you are," the man snapped, slamming his hand on the counter. "I'm the paying customer. You're the help. Now get the plunger and do your job." Jessica felt a hot tear slide down her cheek. The words echoed in her head. "You're the help." It was exactly what she had said to Nia Sterling. "And hey," the trucker added, pointing to a dirty glass ashtray filled with gum wrappers on the counter. "Empty that while you're at it. It's disgusting." Jessica's hand trembled as she reached for the ashtray. It was cold and heavy. As she walked toward the trash can, humiliated and broken, she realized that she wasn't just working a bad job. She was living in a hell of her own making, forced to relive her worst moment every single night for minimum wage. Greg Thorne, the nervous CFO, thought he could outsmart karma by becoming a snitch. The moment the FAA audit team seized his laptop, Greg cracked. He sat in a cold interrogation room, sweating through his shirt, and sang like a bird. He gave the prosecutors everything: the encrypted ledgers, the emails where Brad authorized the fake parts, the recordings of them mocking safety regulations. He thought his cooperation would save him. He was wrong. While his testimony kept him out of a maximum security penitentiary, it didn't save his life. The plea deal stripped him of his CPA license permanently. He was barred from holding any fiduciary position in a public company for life. But the personal cost was higher. His wife, a socialite who had enjoyed the fruits of his fraud, didn't stick around for the harvest of shame. She served him divorce papers the day the indictment made the Wall Street Journal. She took the house, the kids, and the dog, citing irreconcilable differences and reputational damage. 6 months later, Greg was living in his younger brother's unfinished basement in Queens. He sat in the dark, surrounded by boxes of his old life, the blue light of a laptop illuminating his pale face. He spent 18 hours a day on internet forums, arguing with strangers about the Ascend Airways scandal. He created anonymous accounts to defend himself, typing frantically. The CFO was just following orders. He was a victim too. But the internet always knew. "Nice try, Greg," a user replied. "You signed the checks. You're just a rat who got caught in the trap." Greg closed the laptop, staring at the concrete wall. He had traded his integrity for a bonus he never got to keep, and now silence was the only company he had left. But the universe saved its most poetic justice for Bradford Halloway. Brad didn't plead out. His arrogance wouldn't allow it. He truly believed he could charm a jury, just like he had charmed investors for decades. He hired the most expensive defense team in the state, draining his hidden offshore accounts to pay their retainers. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Brad sat in the courtroom wearing his best Italian suit, smirking at the prosecutors, confident that business judgment would protect him. Then, the prosecution called their star witness, Mike, the former mechanic, now the VP of fleet maintenance for Sterling Ascend. Mike didn't look like a grease monkey anymore. He wore a sharp blazer and spoke with the quiet confidence of a man who knows the truth. He held up the dead man's diary. "Can you read the entry for October 12th? The prosecutor asked. Mike adjusted his glasses. "Tail number N-5 Direct order from CEO Halloway. Bypass safety interlock on landing gear. If it fails, insurance pays out. If it flies, we get paid. Just get it done." The courtroom gasped. The jury looked at Brad not as a businessman, but as a monster. Brad's smirk vanished, replaced by a pale, sickly realization. He looked at his lawyer, who just closed his notebook and shook his head. It was over. The sentence was severe. 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The day of the transfer to the federal penitentiary was grim. The sky was a bruised purple, leaking a freezing drizzle that turned the city grey. Brad was led out of the courthouse, holding cell. The Italian suit was gone, replaced by a bright orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on his frame. He had lost 20 pounds from stress. His wrists were bound by heavy steel handcuffs. His ankles were shackled, forcing him to shuffle in small, pathetic steps. 2 U.S. Marshals flanked him, gripping his arms tight. "Move it, Halloway," one marshal barked. "Transport is waiting." They pushed him out the side exit onto the wet pavement. The flashbulbs of the press were blinding, but Brad kept his head down, unable to face the cameras. As they waited for the armored van to maneuver into position, Brad lifted his head. Across the street, looming over the intersection, was a massive digital billboard. It was an advertisement for Sterling Ascend, the rebranded and revitalized airline. The image was high definition and vibrant. It showed a group of employees, Mike the mechanic, the young woman from catering, Captain Milan, standing on the tarmac, looking strong and proud. And in the center, arms crossed, wearing a pristine white suit that seemed to glow against the background, was Nia Sterling. She wasn't smiling. She looked fierce, competent, and undeniably powerful. The slogan faded in, letter by massive letter. Integrity. It's the only thing that makes us fly. Brad stared at the giant image of the woman he had dismissed as a servant. He looked at her eyes in the photo. They seemed to be looking right down at him, judging him, pitying him. He had told her she was nothing. Now, she was the face of the industry, and he was a footnote in a criminal justice textbook. The armored van screeched to a halt in front of him. The back door swung open with a rusty screech, revealing a dark, cramped metal cage. It smelled of sweat, urine, and despair. "Let's go, CEO," the marshal said, mocking his former title. Brad hesitated. The cage looked suffocating. "Please," he rasped, his voice cracking. Is there another transport? A car? I can't sit in there. I have claustrophobia." The marshal looked at Brad. Then he looked up at the billboard of Nia Sterling. He remembered the video. He remembered the way Brad had treated people who were just doing their jobs. The marshal smiled, a cold, hard smile. "You don't like the seating arrangements?" the marshal asked. "No," Brad pleaded. "Please." The marshal grabbed Brad's shoulder and shoved him toward the dark metal box. "Well, that's too bad," the marshal said, his voice echoing the ghost of that rainy morning at Teterboro. "Because your other option is to wait outside." With a heavy clang, the marshal slammed the cage door shut. The lock clicked, sealing Brad in darkness. As the van pulled away, splashing dirty water onto the sidewalk, the billboard of Nia Sterling remained, shining bright and untouched above the city, watching the trash finally get taken away. So, what is the lesson here? It's simple. The way you treat the person who holds the door says more about your character than the way you treat the person who signs the checks. Bradford Halloway and his team thought power was a license to abuse. They thought that because Nia was wearing a hoodie and had dark skin, she was beneath them. They learned the hard way that in the game of life, the pawn can become the queen in a single move. Nia Sterling didn't just fire them, she dismantled their entire worldview. She proved that true power isn't about how loud you can shout, but how clearly you can see the value in others. If you enjoyed this story of massive karma and justice, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And tell me in the comments below, have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they were better than you? How did you handle it? I read every comment. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. We have a new drama dropping every week where the good guys win and the bad guys get exactly what they deserve. Thanks for watching. And remember, be kind, because you never know who you're talking to.